Expedition 33 was crowned 2025's Game of the Year, and I thought the Platinum Trophy was going to be a breeze. I couldn't have been more wrong. This Platinum pushed me harder than I expected, mentally, emotionally, and mechanically. And what started as an excitement to begin a new journey turned into one of the most demanding trophy journeys I've ever taken on. So welcome gamers and trophy hunters, and enjoy as we dive into my Expedition 33 Platinum journey, which all begins in the breathtaking city of Lumiere. Lumiere is essentially an alternate version of Paris, a twisted and desolate Belle Epoque France, which the game makes quite clear with its eerie melting Eiffel Tower looming over the skyline. We are firstly introduced to Gustave, voiced by the legendary Charlie Cox. Gustave is both a father figure and simultaneously like an older brother to Maelles, having taken her in after she lost her biological parents at a young age. Within Lumiere, Gustave is a widely respected engineer, his greatest creation being the Lumiere Converter, which is a revolutionary invention designed to help expeditions survive the brutal conditions of the continent to confront the Paintress, the game's antagonist, who is a brutal-like god who sits upon a monolith, which shows a number counting down every year. When she stands up and paints, the number changes. Anyone who is that age gets gammaged, which means they are erased from existence into a snowfall of petals in a matter of seconds. The Lumiere Converter harnesses chroma, the life essence of creatures roaming the lands, and he's found a way to use this to help enhance Pictos for expeditioners, which isn't just helpful, but it's life-changing, granting everything from increased health to defensive properties, at the cost of defeating whatever holds the chroma, that is. And trust me, without Pictos, this Platinum wouldn't just be difficult, it would be impossible. So nice one, Gustave. We learn early on that Gustave's ex-lover, Sophie, is due to be gammaged that very day, and all he wishes is to say one last goodbye. Once Gustave locates Sophie, the two explore the festival, or celebration, if you can call it that, surrounding the gammage. While wandering through the streets, I stumbled across a strange-looking mime, which unsurprisingly turned out to be hostile. This fight was the moment the game stopped holding my hand so early on. It forced me to learn how Expedition 33 wants to be played, parrying, dodging, and managing skills instead of just surviving encounters. By the end, I was fully utilising Gustave's overcharge ability, charging it by perfect dodges and perfect parrying. This single encounter earned me my first 3 trophies in quick succession, using overcharge for the first time, breaking an enemy by filling and breaking its stun bar, and finally, defeating the mime of Lumiere itself. Fighting a strange mime in the middle of a celebration of people vanishing into existence by a giant god called the Paintress definitely set the tone for the rest of the Platinum, but little did I know what I really had in store. Once they reach the harbour, it happens. The Paintress rises, the number on the monolith changes from 34 to 33, and in an instant everyone of that age is erased, including Sophie. With no time to process the loss, Expedition 33 have one last drink before setting sail to the continent. Gustave, Maelles, Lune, Ciel, and many others, all heading toward a fate that no expedition before them has seemed to escape. During this moment, the game starts hinting at a much bigger history, something called the Fracture, and an earlier expedition known as Expedition Zero. At this point, none of it fully made sense to me. I had no idea how extensive this lore really was. Every year, a new expedition sets sail from Lumiere with the same goal in mind, to defeat the Paintress and end the gammage, and every year, they fail. By the time Expedition 33 set off, hope was already running thin. Lumiere had watched decades of attempts end in silence, and the Paintress always remained sitting upon the monolith. At this point of the game, I didn't fully understand the history behind the monolith and just how many expeditions had already failed. I only knew one thing. This was a near impossible task that no expeditioner had completed. As the expedition set sail, I get my next trophy for embarking on the expedition. Upon arriving on a darkened, bleak beach, an old man with white hair emerges from the shadows. The expeditioners quickly realise something is wrong. He has somehow survived the gammage. Before any questions can be answered, he decapitates one of the crew. And from there, everything collapses. Expeditioners are slaughtered one by one, not just by the man, but also by massive grotesque creatures known as Nevrons. I honestly didn't expect the game to take such a brutal turn so quickly. Within seconds, almost everyone is dead. The grotesque Nevron turns on Gustave. The screen cuts to black, and Act 1 begins. Gustave awakes alone in a serene, almost peaceful place known as Spring Meadows. The contrast is jarring from moments ago being chaos, so I had to process what just happened. Before long, he encounters his first fight with a Nevron. After defeating it, something strange happens. Chroma pours out from its body. Pushing forward, Gustave ends up in a cave. Inside, he finds the bodies of his fallen expedition members, piled into a mass, almost like it's a trophy. Thinking carrying on is futile, he raises a gun to his head. But Lune appears, stating if he does that they both die, and she stops him, not with hope, but with reality. Another Nevron appears, and Lune now joins the battle with her elemental abilities. After defeating the Nevron, they test the Lumina Converter, and it works, pulling Chroma in from the fallen Nevron. And for the first time since the beach, they finally have a reason to keep moving. As Gustave and Lune continue through the meadows, the world begins to open up. Along the way, they discover expedition flags, checkpoints left behind by expeditions who came before them. Each flag is marked with a number, showing which expedition had been there prior. They allow us to rest, recover, and grow stronger by upgrading attribute points. At the time, it felt like standard progression, but much later I'd realise how important every single level would become, especially with a level 99 trophy waiting for me at the end of the journey. From a distance, we finally get a clear look at the continent, and just how much space lies between us and the Paintress. Not every encounter here is hostile. They come across a Nevron that doesn't attack, one that they can actually communicate with. It's the first sign that this world isn't simply black and white. Nearby they find their first expedition journal, records left behind by previous expeditions, detailing how far they'd made it, what caused their demise, and some felt like a warning. Before long, the calm breaks. The first true boss fight of the game appears, and kills another one of the expedition members who we meet for 2 seconds, Leo. Defeating the boss allows the crew to find their way to the Indigo Tree. There are no survivors, only a message. Maelles has been taken to a place filled with weird corals, and through a door in a hut. Gustave wants to find her immediately, but Lune urges caution. She says protocol is to wait at the rally point, and this could be a trap. Gustave ignores it and goes anyway. Lune hesitates, then follows. This decision, reckless or brave, pushes the expedition forward. And this is where another trophy pops, marking the end of Spring Meadows and the moment the journey truly begins. Leaving Spring Meadows drops us into the continent itself, a massive open area that connects every major location in the game. At this point we can't travel very far, but even from here you can get a sense of just how dangerous this place is, and in the distance we can already see the weird coral formations mentioned in the message. That trail leads us straight into our next destination, Flying Waters. Flying Waters is easily one of the most beautiful areas in the game. It's essentially an underwater level, except the expedition isn't affected by water at all, which gives the entire area this surreal, dreamlike feel. Not long after entering, we come across the wreckage of Expedition 68, an expedition Lumiere lost sight of when their ship was caught in a violent storm. Just another reminder that almost no one who comes out here ever makes it back. Shortly after this, I find my first paint cage, a locked container holding rare loot, protected by 3 hidden orbs scattered nearby. Shooting all 3 of them unlock the cage, trophy pops, another one down. As we push further through Flying Waters, we're introduced to new Nevron variants, and some surprisingly dangerous terrain. A huge minefield hidden beneath the open waters. Eventually we reach the door buried deep within the coral, and for the first time, we see a mysterious figure watching us from afar. Desperate to find Maelles, Gustave pushes forward without hesitation. The moment we step through the door, the world shifts, and suddenly we are no longer in Flying Waters at all. Instead, we find ourselves transported into an entire manor, and at this point it's clear the story is only just getting started. Exploring the manor, we finally find Maelles, sitting alone at a desk, fully believing everyone else from the expedition is dead. When she turns around and realises it's Gustave, the two reunite, bringing the expedition from 2 survivors back up to 3. That reunion doesn't last long. A grotesque creature appears, its face partially missing. At first it looks like we're about to be thrown into another boss fight. Instead we learn that it's actually been helping Maelles, reinforcing her Pictos and quietly training her while she's been trapped here. When we attempt to leave the manor, the creature stops us, forcing Maelles to fight once more. It's a clever way of introducing her combat style, and after the fight is over, the path forward finally opens. Back outside, we return to Flying Waters, and are introduced to Noko, a Gestral. Strange competitive creatures that look like wooden puppets with paintbrushes for heads. Gestrals are known for their love of fighting, and for a long time most people believed they were little more than a myth. They'd only ever been seen by Expedition Zero, which made their existence a bit of a legend back in Lumiere. Noko explains that another sea lies between us and the Paintress, and that reaching her directly from here would be impossible. Instead, he points us towards Golgra, the chief of the Gestral Village, the only one who might know of a way forward. Before we can leave Flying Waters, we push through what feels like a sunken underwater city, eventually facing a boss known as Goblu, a huge creature obsessed with flowers. Once Goblu goes down, we finally leave Flying Waters behind, and Trophy 7 pops. Back on the continent, the group sets up camp for the night. Before resting, Maelles experiences a nightmare, a brief but unsettling vision of an unfamiliar man, hinting that there's far more going on beneath the surface than we realise. At camp, the curator from the Manor now joins us, giving access to weapon upgrades and assigning luminers to characters. As expected, doing both of these knocks out a couple more trophies. Just before sleeping, I choose to check in on the others around the campfire. This optional moment rewards a quiet but important scene. Gustav and Loon talking about how little they truly understand the world they're in, and how unclear the true nature of the Paintress really is. Watching this scene unlocks another trophy, and with that we finally rest, ready to seek out the Gestral Village the next morning. Entering the ancient sanctuary, we finally get close to the hidden Gestral Village, though the area itself feels deliberately hostile and confusing. Early on we run into a Patank, small orb-like creatures that flee after a few turns and are surprisingly hard to kill. By marking the enemy with Gustav, then using Maelles in Virtuous stance and finishing it with her Per Se ability, I accidentally unlocked another trophy, one I genuinely wasn't even aiming for. The ancient sanctuary itself is a maze. The Gestrals clearly designed it this way to keep Neverons out, and it works. Patrolling the area are massive puppet-like guardians called Sacapatates, essentially living defences protecting the village. Near the end of the sanctuary, the expedition is ambushed by the ultimate Sacapatate, the Gestral's final line of defence, believing it to be invincible. It was not. Defeating it earns another trophy for reaching the end of the sanctuary, and finally grants us access to the Gestral Village, and an audience with their leader, Golgra. Entering the Gestral Village, it immediately feels unreal. The Gestrals were believed to be a myth, yet here they are. The village is bursting with life. Merchants selling gear, Gestrals playing music, an arena built purely for fighting, and others busy constructing Sacapatates. After exploring for a while, we finally meet Golgra, having proven ourselves by defeating the ultimate Sacapatate. She shows us respect, but also delivers bad news. Without a boat, crossing the sea toward the Paintress is impossible. Our only lead is a powerful being named Esquies, who resides in his nest. To gain access to Esquies Nest, we're told we must earn the password, and that means entering the Gestral tournament and fighting the new mysterious stranger. After clearing a few straightforward Gestral boss fights, we finally face the tournament's final challenger, Ciel, another survivor of Expedition 33, who somehow ended up in the village. Following a brief reunion, the expedition grows once again, now 4 strong, and now looking like a worthy expedition for the Paintress. We return to Golgra, who reveals the password isn't really a secret phase at all, and to just shout our way inside. A very Gestral solution. With that, the group leaves the Gestral Village, marking the end of this chapter, and another trophy. Before heading to Esquies Nest, the group sets up camp, and that's when Maelles is hit by another nightmare. A white-haired girl wearing a mask appears before her, alongside the old white-haired man. He blames Maelles for everything that's happening, telling her that pushing forward will only make things worse, and that the kindest thing to do is stop and let everyone live out their final year in peace. She wakes up. Shaken but not broken, the group consoles her, and the next morning they set off to finally meet the powerful being known as Esquies. At the entrance, Gustav confidently shouts the password, "Get out of my way!" Only to realise he never actually knew it in the first place. Turns out yelling works just fine. Very Gestral. Inside, Esquies Nest opens into a vast cavern, lanterns hanging from the ceiling, casting a calm but slightly ominous glow. Pushing forward, we finally meet Esquies, a joyful, almost toy-like being, with the presence of something far more ancient than he lets on. Almost immediately, Esquies makes an offhand comment about Ciel, mentioning that she is a terrible swimmer, yet Ciel is certain they have never met before. Despite his power, Esquies explains that he can't simply carry us across the sea, we'd be too heavy, and instead sends us after his rock, Flory, stolen by his arch-nemesis, a giant talking rock who insists he's actually a turtle. After a tough battle avoiding the strongest ice attack ever, Francois is defeated and Flory is recovered. Or so we think. As we return to Esquies, the truth becomes clear. This isn't Flory at all. From a nearby cave, we hear Francois laughing, mocking us, before revealing that the real Flory is still sitting peacefully on the stone wave cliffs to the north. Little did I know what waited in store for me there. With that, a trophy pops, officially unlocking Esquies and opening the path forward for the expedition. Unlocking Esquies completely changes how the world opens up. For the first time, I pull up the map and really understand the scale of this journey. How huge the continent is, how little I've explored, and just how far we still are from the Paintress. But there's no time to sit with this realization. First, we need Flory. Stone Wave Cliffs is a stunning yet desolate location. Fractured rock, towering cliffs, and unstable terrain that constantly feels like it's ready to give way beneath you. It's also home to the most dangerous Nevrons I've faced so far. Massive enemies with diamonds erupting from their backs, and tall, faceless humanoids wielding enormous great swords. Pushing through dingy caverns and gloomy caves, we finally reach a clearing and spot Flory in the distance. But on the way, something feels off. As we continue through the cliffs, lamps begin lighting up one by one. The trail leads us to a grotesque figure, a warped creature with multiple arms, each clutching a glowing lamp. This is the Lamp Master, easily the hardest boss I've fought so far, and made even worse by the fact that it has two distinct phases. After several failed attempts, I finally managed to bring him down. With the Lamp Master defeated, Flory is reclaimed, and Esquies can finally swim carrying the expedition. Without hesitation, Esquies leaps from the cliffs into the water below, urging the expedition to follow. Ciel and Lune jump down immediately, but Gustave and Maelles hesitate for a moment, taking in how close they are to the Paintress now. Gustave bends down to pick up a stone, and that's when everything changes. The old man from the beach appears again, menacingly in the background. Before anyone can react, a blinding flash of white pierces straight through Gustave. He stumbles back, looks at Maelles in panic, and utters one word. Run! Gustave shields Maelles and turns to face the man. Despite being severely wounded, he fights back with everything he has, but his attacks do nothing. As Gustave goes for one final strike, the man rushes forward and drives his blade straight through him, delivering a fatal blow. In an emotionally devastating scene, Gustave collapses, bleeding out on the ground. The white-haired man approaches Maelles and tells her that what he's doing is for the good of his family, that she wouldn't understand yet. And this is, in his words, kindness, not cruelty. Before anything else can happen, another man appears and intervenes, someone who clearly knows the attacker. The old man accuses him of choosing to walk away, and if he continues to stop him, asks if he is truly ready to face the consequences of his actions. The stranger looks towards the Paintress and says she will never paint again. His mind is clearly made up. The old man leaves. At this point, I had no idea what was truly happening, but it was clear that the story had just taken a massive turn. And this is where the Stone Wave Cliffs trophy pops. Back at camp, the expedition mourns Gustave's death, unsure of what to do next. Despite everything, they agree the plan doesn't change. They still need to head north toward the Monolith, with Esquies' help. That's when the stranger appears again. He introduces himself as an expeditioner from the very first expedition, Expedition Zero. To everyone's surprise, he hasn't aged, nor has he been affected by the Gamage, just like the old man. We learn the old man is named Renoir, the commander of Expedition Zero. Renoir believes his immortality is a gift from the Paintress, and that killing her would kill him as well. The stranger, however, believes differently, and admits immortality isn't a blessing, that watching everyone you know die can slowly break you down. The stranger finally introduces himself properly. His name is Verso. Before the new crew set off, Verso tries to apologise to Maelles for not getting there in time to save Gustave, but Maelles doesn't want to hear it. She shuts it down instantly. Not long after, the expedition moves again, heading towards the forgotten battlefields to continue the journey toward the Monolith. Having taken over Gustave as a playable character, now being Verso, it felt abrupt. and I didn't like it at first, especially after spending the entire game so far building attachment to Gestral. The moment we entered forgotten battlefields, the mood completely changed. A sea of fallen expeditioners lay scattered across a red wasteland, bodies, scrap, dust, and silence. The colour was dampened like the land itself has been drained of life. Nothing about this place looked friendly. Maelles asks if we can bury Gestral somewhere nearby, and Verso says he knows of a tranquil spot just beyond the battlefield. After surviving treacherous Neverons and pushing through the oppressive landscape, we reached what felt like the end of the area. We approached a bridge, the kind of quiet moment that normally means safety is close. Then suddenly, everything collapsed. A huge Neveron dropped down and ambushed us, the bridge giving way beneath the expeditioners' feet. They plunged into a river of blood, bodies and despair, and the Neveron followed straight after. No warning, no mercy. This monster was a brutal duelist, a towering Neveron wielding two massive swords, built entirely around relentless pressure. It didn't fight fair, it didn't pause, it just kept swinging, chaining combos until you either learnt the rhythm or got torn apart. But weirdly, this boss ended up helping me improve massively, because it forced me to understand Verso properly. His fighting style isn't just about surviving, it's about building momentum. Every parry, every strike, every moment you remain avoiding damage increases his rank. And once I finally reached the top rank, rank S, another trophy popped on the screen. It felt earned. With the duelist finally down, we reached the tranquil area Verso had promised. The first moment of calm we'd had in what felt like forever. Maelles finally buries Gestral. The expedition says their goodbyes, quickly, quietly, and just like that, the expedition moves on. Another area completed, another trophy pops, and another step closer to the Paintress. Back at camp, the expedition debates what comes next. Verso takes charge, recommending we head to Monocos Station to recruit his oldest friend. We're going to need the extra firepower if we're going to survive what's ahead. From there, the plan is clear: Old Lumiere. Verso explains the Paintress is protected by a powerful barrier, and the only way to break it is by destroying her heart, hidden deep in Old Lumiere. But before we leave, we learn something massive. The myths were true, and that Lumiere we live in now used to be part of Old Lumiere, before the fracture split it apart and cast part of the city away. The next morning, we arrive at Monocos Station, a destroyed train station buried under snow. That's where we meet Monoko, a chaotic, clumsy Gestral, who immediately challenges us to a duel. His fighting style caught me off guard straight away, because he can literally turn into Neverons mid-combat and use them as attacks. We also find out how he does it, by collecting their feet after defeating them. Weird, yeah. But we end up recruiting Verso's old buddy anyway, and the expedition finally grows into 5 members. And with that, I unlock a trophy for unlocking all playable characters. Shortly after, another trophy pops as the group move on from Monocos Station, and onto Old Lumiere. Old Lumiere is an eerie sight: grey ruins, jagged rock formations, crumbling buildings, and massive golden swords scattered across the landscape like they were slammed into the ground by giants. Something about it just feels wrong, like we're walking through the aftermath of a war that never truly ended. Before long, Monoko tries to show off by smashing through a blocked path, only to accidentally split the ground apart and separate the group. Monoko, Ciel and Lune get cut off from Maelles and Verso. As they push forward trying to reunite, Lune and Ciel start talking about Verso, and how it feels like he's hiding something. That's when they find a journal entry that reveals something unsettling. I had no idea what it was, but the panic hits instantly, and they need to find Maelles immediately. At the same time, Maelles and Verso search for the others. Instead, they stumble across something far worse: a huge abandoned manor, sitting in the city like it doesn't belong there. As Maelles approaches, the door opens, and a faceless woman-like figure steps forward, eerily similar to the curator. Then, at the entrance, Renoir appears. Renoir isn't alone. Standing beside him is the white-haired girl in the mask from Maelles Nightmare. As Renoir and Verso argue, the conversation turns to family, and I'm not going to lie, I was completely confused at this point. Then, Renoir says it. He calls Verso his son. And that's when the twist hits. The man who murdered countless expeditioners, the man who defended the Paintress at all costs, and the man who killed Gestral was Verso's father the entire time. But we don't even get a moment to process it, because we are thrown straight into a boss fight with Renoir. This fight was brutal, but it had one of the coolest atmospheres in the whole game. The manor in the background, the music, everything felt intense, like the game knew this moment was important. But there was one mechanic that made this fight terrifying. Renoir can literally erase Expeditioners. If he lands a certain attack, they vanish completely, removed from the battle for good. I hope that mechanic isn't used in another boss fight. By the end of the fight, it felt like the whole expedition was barely holding on. I ended up defeating Renoir with Ciel after a final clutch sequence. Ciel's abilities are built around stacking foretell units onto enemies, and she also consumes foretell units to deal more damage. Doing both things gives Ciel a sun charge and a moon charge respectively, and having both active puts her into a stronger version of herself called Twilight Mode for 2 turns. By consuming 20 foretell cards whilst in Twilight Mode, I got the Ciel trophy and delivered the killing blow to Renoir in the process. After Renoir is beaten, he and his family flee, with the entire manor as well. Verso shouts the name Alicia, and the trophy for completing old Lumiere pops. Back at the camp, the group confronts Verso for hiding the truth. He claims it was personal and that he cut ties with his father years ago. But now we realise something worse. The Paintress's heart was inside that manor, and now it's gone. Again, we're back to square one. But Lune reveals something from the expedition journal she found. There might be another way to pierce the barrier. The curator might be able to forge a weapon strong enough to do it, but it is a near impossible task as it requires an enormous amount of chroma. And this amount of chroma can only be harvested from the hearts of giant creatures near the Monolith. The Axons. Verso warns us it's far too dangerous, and he says that even he, supposedly immortal, has never killed one. But at this point the expedition isn't backing down. 2 Axons remain, one to the west, one to the east. Time to hunt them down. The group hastily make their way to the first Axon. We arrive at what looks like a desert coliseum, and right in the middle at the bottom, she's waiting for us. Sirenne. She who plays with Wanda. And honestly, she's one of the most unsettling designs in the entire game. She's a huge puppet made of cloth, moving in this hypnotic, graceful way. The problem is, she isn't just dancing. She's playing with the expeditioners' heads, twisting their thoughts like strings, until they finally snap out of it and realise what's happening. That's when we start the descent. Getting down to Sirenne takes ages. We're travelling through this enormous orange coliseum, using these weird living lifts, fighting through her minions, and pushing through areas that feel like they're literally made of fabric. It's not just a level, it's a full descent into her world. And after fighting through boss minions and clearing what feels like a never-ending path, we finally reach her. Sirenne tries messing with our heads again, but this time it doesn't work. And when she fails to control Verso, she completely loses it. She snaps. The fight begins. The boss battle is basically a dance. You're dodging elegant cloth attacks, parrying ribbons that fly through the air like blades, and trying to not get overwhelmed during what the game literally calls the Grand Ballet, where her minions flood the arena and everything becomes chaos. It's beautiful, but it's also brutal. During one of my attempts, I get a trophy with Monocos for using an upgraded skill from his bestial wheel 4 times in a row. After a few tries, we finally bring her down. Sirenne falls apart completely, and we take her heart, harvesting the chroma we need for the weapon. And that reward comes with trophies, of course. 1 for reaching level 33, and 1 for defeating Axon number 1. Only 1 left. Now it's time to head west, to the second Axon, Visage, he who guards truth with lies. Even approaching his island feels like you're heading somewhere you shouldn't be. And when we finally step onto the island, it gets even creepier. The masks are everywhere. In the walls, in the ruins, in every direction you turn. It feels like the island itself is watching you. We're greeted by the Mask Keeper, who calmly tells us the invitation still stands to meet the Axon. Unlike Sirenne, where reaching her felt like an entire journey on its own, this time there's a direct path. So I decide to take it, no messing around. And when we finally reach Visage, I knew instantly this fight was going to be a problem. He's huge, shoulders and arms made of rock, with multiple floating masks, circling him like weapons. It looks like a boss that isn't just trying to kill you, it's trying to break you. In battle, Visage constantly swaps between mask types, and each one changes the fight completely. Some masks buff the boss, some debuff the expedition. It's like the rules keep changing mid-fight, and you've got to adapt instantly or get steamrolled. Eventually I whittle him down and land the final hit, and I'm relieved. For about 2 seconds. Because that's when the game reveals the twist. The Mask Keeper we met earlier steps forward, and it turns out he wasn't guiding us at all. He was the real Axon, a mask of a mask. And this is where it gets serious. After everything he throws at us, we finally bring him down. Ciel lands the finishing blow, we take the second Axon's heart, and the trophy pops for defeating Axon number 2. 2 hearts collected, now it's time to forge the weapon. We return to the Curator with the second heart, and at last he forges the barrier breaker weapon. And it finally hits me. We're finally going to face the Paintress and learn the truth about what the hell has been happening in this world. With the barrier breaker forged, the expedition finally prepares to face the Paintress. As Verso looks toward her, the white-haired girl appears beside him once again, Alicia, his sister. She quietly hands him a letter. Then Renoir steps forward, desperate to stop what's about to happen. He warns Verso that killing the Paintress will have irreversible consequences, that it will cost them their immortality and destroy everything their family once was. But Verso has already made his decision. At last, the expedition reaches the Monolith. The Curator's weapon does exactly what it was made to do, shattering the barrier surrounding it, and finally allowing us inside. The group stands before the Paintress. She sits high atop the Monolith, looming over the expedition, like a god carved from stone. We attack, and nothing happens. Our strikes do absolutely nothing, and the Paintress doesn't even react. Not a word, not a movement. That's when everything changes. The woman who opened the door for Maelles appears again, flames swirling around her. For a moment it looks like she's about to burn the expedition alive. But she stops. Then she steps through a portal. We follow her. And as we do, a trophy pops for reaching the Monolith. Inside, Maelles comes to a realization. The Paintress we saw before wasn't the true target. The real Paintress is at the top of the Monolith, and the only way forward is to climb. This is where things get confusing. The climb to the top isn't just a new area. Instead, we're forced to traverse through warped versions of every major location we've already visited. Spring Meadows, Flying Waters, the Ancient Sanctuary, Stone Wave Cliffs, the Forgotten Battlefields, Monocos Station. It feels like the game is making us relive the entire journey one last time. Eventually, a faceless boy with the train appears and takes us to Lumiere, his hometown. We push forward through the city, climbing higher and higher, until it finally feels like we're close to the top. And then, Renoir appears again. We see a brief vision of Renoir standing beside someone who looks like his partner. A moment of humanity that almost makes you hesitate. Almost. Renoir steps out of the shadows once more, begging Verso to stop. He doesn't want to lose his son, and insists that the Paintress isn't the only one who grieves. Verso does not want to hear it. He simply readies his blade. Renoir reluctantly does what he has to do, and the battle begins. The music hits instantly, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it's some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard in a game. The fight is long, intense, and emotionally charged, especially when Renoir summons a massive lion out of nowhere, turning the battle into pure chaos. But after everything he throws at us, we finally take him down. Bloodied and broken, Renoir struggles back to his feet. He tries one last time to convince Verso that he is his real family, not Maelles. And honestly, yeah, I was still extremely confused at this point. Then Renoir shouts, "Let us celebrate the second destruction of the Descendre family." Before he can do anything, the Curator appears. Renoir tells him that this won't bring his wife back. The Curator doesn't respond. He simply stares at him with that faceless expression. Then the Curator and Maelles both place their hands on Renoir's chest and explode him into a snowfall of petals. A sight we've seen before. Renoir is finally gone. With Renoir defeated, there is nothing left standing in our way. No barriers, no lies, no family left to protect. And I knew that at the top of the Monolith, I was finally going to get the answers I'd been looking for. We meet the white-haired faceless woman again, standing atop the Monolith. The expedition immediately notices how much she resembles the Curator, and remembers Renoir mentioning the Curator's wife. Could she be the Paintress? Then the truth begins to fracture. The Paintress looks at Maelles and calls her Alicia, the daughter she lost. She studies Verso and says, "You are not my Verso." Verso replies quietly, "No, Verso is dead." Stay with me, I was completely baffled here too. The Paintress erupts in fury. "You shall not take this canvas from me." And the battle begins. This is the moment every expeditioner had waited for. Years of failed journeys, countless lives erased, and now it's finally our turn. The fight is beautiful. The sky burns behind her. Floating rock fragments drift in silence. Her movements are elegant, precise, controlled. She attacks with Chroma and summons shards from the Monolith itself. We grind through the first phase, but it's not over, not even close. Esquies descends. Earlier we found Sorry, the stone that allows him to fly. We mount him just as the giant Paintress, the goddess we've seen looming over Lumiere the entire game, begins to rise behind her smaller form. Now the real battle starts. She's faster, stronger, deadlier. And that towering version of herself behind her makes every attack feel overwhelming. After a brutal exchange, we finally bring her down. And then, her final phase begins. She starts healing us. What is happening? Verso and Maelles strike together, ending it once and for all. But with her final breath, she calls Maelles Alicia again. Then silence. The number on the monolith disappears. It's done. Expedition 33 places their flag. After decades of failure, they succeeded. And with that, I unlock the trophy for defeating the Paintress. The expedition returns to Lumiere. They're celebrated. The gamage is finally over. But something feels wrong. Verso sits at the water's edge, staring at the now empty monolith. He reads the letter Alicia gave him, and everything unravels. The Paintress wasn't threatening them, but she was warning them. The numbers weren't a curse, they were protection. Verso knew. He knew what killing her would really mean. And then instantly, everyone begins to gamage. Not just the old, everyone, regardless of age. They start to cease to exist. Even Maelles. I was stunned. We flash back, Monolith year 49, and the epilogue begins. Maelles, or rather Alicia, the real Alicia, burned in the fire that scarred her and took her voice. And then the truth drops. The entire world we played in, the canvas, is a creation painted by Aileen, mother of Alicia, Clair, and Verso. The real world, Paris, a Paris where painters can create living worlds. Inside the canvas, Renoir, their father, is locked in a stalemate with Aileen. She trapped him below the monolith, he trapped her above it. Aileen painted the canvas because she was grieving. Verso died in the Manor fire while saving Alicia, so she created a painted version of him and the rest of the family, so she wouldn't have to lose him again. Renoir entered the canvas to bring her back, but she refused to leave. The painted family meant too much. Clair and Alicia hid the painting so Aileen can't return to it, and Alicia enters the canvas herself, reborn as Maelles. That twist was insane. And somehow, there's still more. Maelles, now aware she is Alicia, sits in the empty Lumiere with Verso. Not the real Verso, the painted one. She wants to find Renoir, the real Renoir, believing he can repaint the erased world. They approach the curator, and the final reveal lands. The curator is the real Renoir, but he still wants the canvas erased completely, because as long as a fragment of Verso's soul exists within it, Aileen will always find her way back. Maelles refuses, and Renoir loses patience. He summons an army of Nevrons, and we evacuate Lumiere with Monocos and Esquies. And after all that, I unlock a trophy for returning to Lumiere. Maelles, now embracing her Paintress side, brings back Lune and Ciel, and the final act truly begins. The reunited expedition form a final plan. If Renoir wants to erase the canvas, then they'll force him out of it first. To do that, they begin collecting chroma, not from enemies this time, but from the fallen expeditioners scattered across the continent. Everyone who tried before them, everyone who failed. Their final push is powered by the past. We return to Lumiere, but it's no longer the city we left. It's darker, twisted, corrupted. Renoir now reigns over it, surrounded by grotesque Nevrons that crawl through the ruins like they own it. And when we arrive, Maelles unleashes the collected chroma. She summons an army. Behind us an all-out war begins, expeditioners against Nevrons, while we push forward through the chaos toward Renoir himself. It feels like the end. After carving our way through fallen Lumiere, we finally stand before Renoir. He doesn't deny what he's doing. He doesn't even claim he wants destruction. He explains that the canvas is intoxicating, addictive, dangerous, and that staying inside will only destroy them all. But Maelles refuses to accept that. And so the true final battle begins. Renoir transforms back into the curator, and immediately goes feral. He summons black holes. He even calls upon the previous Axons, resurrecting them as weapons to shield and assault us. such as throw entire buildings into the air and hurl them at us. This fight is chaos, pure cinematic chaos. We break through his first phase, and just when things look hopeless, Aline enters the canvas once again. In one of the most epic scenes in the entire game, the Paintress rises again and begins battling the Axons in the background, a full-scale godlike war happening behind us, while we focus on Renoir for round 2. Now he's faster, more aggressive, relentless. His combos are punishing, his attacks devastating, but after everything he throws at us, we bring him down, and I earn the trophy for reaching the end. Of course, my capture card freezes at one of the most climactic moments in the entire game, so we don't actually see his fall. But trust me, it happened. In the final epilogue, Maelles still wants to remain in the canvas. She wants to preserve it, to preserve everyone. But Verso is exhausted. He's tired of grief being stretched into eternity. He believes it's time to let it go. You're given a choice. Play as Maelles and preserve the canvas, or play as Verso and erase it. And honestly, by this point, I was siding with Renoir and Verso. The canvas had become too much, so I chose Verso. After defeating Maelles, it finally begins. The canvas deteriorates. One by one, everyone is gammaged again, this time including Verso, Monocos, Esquies, all of them. We cut to the real world. The real family stands at Verso's grave. Alicia sees the painted versions of her friends one final time, waving goodbye as they fade. And for the first time, it feels like they might finally learn to move on. And with that, the story comes to an end. With the story complete, the journey was far from over. More bosses, more challenges, and a long list of trophies still standing between me and the platinum. The game places us back before the final boss, so I get to work. The first step was finishing every expedition relationship. Reaching level 7 meant spending time with each character at camp, but at higher levels they each had their own final request. Ciel was first. Her and Verso share a quiet moment, and he finally gives her the swimming lessons she'd always been afraid of. After talking to her again, that moment brings their relationship to level 7, and the trophy pops. Lune asks us to find her parents' expedition near Seren's domain. At the end of the path, we fight a giant chromatic glissandro, and beyond it, we find their bodies and their journal. After returning to camp, her relationship reaches level 7, another trophy. Maelles' quest is heavier. She finds Alicia's letter and asks Verso to go and find her. Verso tells her that she's in a mountain where the third Axon resides, and after a long and lengthy climb through new Neverons and strange landscapes, we finally meet Alicia, painting beneath the Axon. They duel, and after defeating her, Maelles gives Alicia peace, freeing her from the canvas. Back at camp, Verso finally admits the truth about Gestral, how he let him die. Her relationship reaches level 7, another trophy. Esquies asks us to find his final rock, Uri, hidden with Francois, and after defeating him and retrieving it, we unlock his final abilities, unlocking one trophy, and completing his relationship, unlocking another. Monocos' final quest takes us to the Sacred River to revive his fallen Gestral friend, and after defeating Golgra and bringing his friend back, we reach level 7 with Monocos, and another trophy. Across the continent, 5 Gestral beaches hide minigames, climbing challenges, a brutal volleyball game, speed trials, obstacle courses, and an awful "the only way is up" like minigame. Completing all 5 rewards another trophy, and a lot of frustration. Exploring further eventually pushes me to level 66, and I realise how far I still have to go to reach 99. While flying across the continent, I encounter Sprong, a strange rock formation that turns into a boss fight, but a quick victory and another trophy. 3 painting workshops lead to a brutal Lampmaster variant, one of the toughest optional fights. Defeating it earns me a trophy, and I also get a rare catalyst to allow Verso to upgrade his weapon to max level, getting me another one. More exploration around the continent leads to a flying dragon-like boss that drains AP, which was a pretty epic fight, but not too much of a struggle, and earning me a trophy for defeating it. I also come across an early game boss which I defeat without taking any damage, which also unlocked me a trophy. One of the longest challenges is the Endless Tower, 33 increasingly difficult fights. hours of attempts. But eventually I clear the final trial, where you have to fight the Curator and the Paintress at the same time. Doing this unlocks another trophy. Unlocking relationship levels also unlocks strong attacks called gradient attacks. Using a level 3 gradient attack then nets me another trophy. Finally, after hours and hours of grinding, I finally reached the dreaded level 99. Then came the hardest challenge in the entire game, Renoir's Drafts. At the end of the abyss awaits Simon, a previous expeditioner who had already killed an Axon. This fight is brutal. 3 phases, punishing combos, and a mechanic that permanently erases party members. After countless attempts and learning every timing and becoming a parry god, we finally bring him down, and earn one of the most satisfying trophies of the entire run. At the Flying Manor, we confront Clair, the creator of the Nevrons, who helped Renoir hold Aline back. After defeating her, another trophy falls. From there, I hunt down the final secrets, finding the hidden Patank, chasing it and defeating it, collecting all of Monocos' skills by collecting Nevron feats from defeating 45 of them, using Lune stains 4 times in a row to get her a trophy, completing every Nevron side quest, where there were 10 of them around the continent, ranging from spending all of your money to a musical minigame to a weird mirror-like minigame, where completing all 10 Nevron quests nets me another trophy. I then had to find 10 lost Gestrals hidden around the continent, which were pretty impossible to find, so I did have to use a guide for that one. We then located the last remaining music records, and finally the last expedition journals. With the final journal collected, the last trophy unlocks, and the platinum appears. Expedition 33 complete. This journey ended up being far more emotional, complex, and unforgettable than I ever expected. From the first expedition to the final goodbye, this was one of the most unique worlds I've experienced in a game. Thank you so much for watching this journey with me, and with that, Expedition 33 comes to an end.